you can feel the emotions of your future before it happens, somehow you have this broadcasting of this Wi-Fi signal. And the brain tends to be electrical in nature, so it sends out an electrical charge into the field. The heart is the magnetic charge. It's what draws things to us. It's the magnetic field. And now you actually, by changing the way you think and the way you feel, you're changing the signal in the field. And if you're able to maintain that state for an extended period of time, I say something magical is going to happen in your life. Something unusual, some unknown experience is going to occur. If you keep thinking the same way and feeling the same way, your life should stay the same.
Create a new level of mind, take away all the doubt, the conjecture, the superstition, the dogma, and so that the person can actually understand what they're doing and why they're doing, so the how gets easier. And when the how gets easier, we assign meaning to the act because we understand what we're doing, and when we do that, we want a greater outcome. So I want to give people the information, and I looked at all the latest research that pointed the finger at human potential and human possibility. I had my own personal experience with a personal injury. We talked about it last time. I studied spontaneous remissions. I wanted to see what people had in common with each other, and I couldn't find the explanation pretty much in contemporary texts. I had to start looking at neuroplasticity and epigenetics. And then I wanted to see, well, now that I know what people did and I understood what they did to have their own personal healings and transformation, could I reproduce the effects? Knowing what they did, finding out what the commonalities were, putting it in the language of science and then teaching it to people. They could be sick or they could be well, it wouldn't matter. But understand what they did in order for them to change and have their life change. And after a couple years of teaching it, we started to see kind of the same type of effects in those people that were applying and doing something with it. So this is a time in history where it's not enough to know. This is a time in history to know how. So when we started seeing people stepping out of wheelchairs and having dramatic changes in their health, I knew that in some moment during the retreat or during their meditation, that something happened to them. They had an experience inwardly that must have changed them biologically.
The person who's living in lack is waiting for their wealth to feel abundant. They're waiting for their success to feel empowered. Mm-hmm. They're waiting for their healing to feel gratitude. They're waiting for their new relationship to feel love. They're waiting for their mystical experience to feel awe. That's the Newtonian model of reality, of cause and effect. Waiting for that event to happen to take away this separation or lack. Nothing wrong with it. It's the way most people create. But what we've discovered is actually something else. The moment you feel gratitude, your healing begins. The moment you feel worthy and abundant, you're generating wealth. The moment you're empowered, you are moving towards your success. The moment you're in love with yourself and you're in love with life, you'll create an equal. The moment you are in awe of life, you're going to have a mystical experience. And so that's causing an effect, right? So then if you can teach people then how to create, instead of from lack or separation, but create from wholeness, and create from what we call the quantum field, instead of three-dimensional reality.
It was no longer about results in their life. It was 100% about effort. It was all effort. They came up against their shadow self. They came up against their disbelief. They came up against their pain. They came up against their fear. They came up against not feeling well, feeling sick. They came up against their self-doubt. They came up with the fact that they didn't have enough time, but guess what? They did their meditation anyway, and they overcame their fear. They overcame their self-doubt. They overcame their disbelief. They overcame, their pain. They overcame their body. They started surrendering to love instead of fear, and their belief in themselves was earned. It was the overcoming, showing up even when they doubted, even when they disbelieved. They showed up anyway, and I was just looking at a testimonial the other day. The guy had a 9.5-inch tumor on his kidneys. 9.5 inches. I said to him, were there days where you didn't want to do your meditation? He said, oh yeah, I didn't feel well a lot of those days. I said, you do it anyway? He said, yep, never missed a day. I said, were there days where you doubted? He said, oh yeah, my family thought I was crazy. Did you do them anyway? Yep, I overcame my doubt that day. And there's some people I say to them, why were you doing your meditations 3 times a day? 3 times a day. They'll say, the chemo wasn't working, the radiation wasn't working, the surgeries didn't work, the drug trial didn't work, the vegan, ketogenic, the intermittent fasting, none of the diets worked. The only thing I was left with was my belief in myself, right? The reason I did my meditations 3 times a day is because I started to disbelieve. I had one of 2 options, die or show up for myself. And I would not get up from that meditation until I believed in my future again. And the only way, as I said, you can believe in that future is to transform those limited emotions into elevated emotions. The person has to find something in them where they could feel the emotion of gratitude and fall in love with the idea of that they could heal. And it's that thought and that feeling, that image and that emotion, that stimulus and response that can condition their body into the emotion and the mind of their future.
When your brain is exposed to information and you're present and you're paying attention, that neurons begin to connect. That's what learning is. Learning is forging new synaptic connections. The Nobel Prize research, Kandel, in the year 2000, the researcher said that if you learned 1 bit of information and you paid attention to that information for about an hour, you would double the number of connections in your brain as a result of your interaction with that information. But if you don't review it, if you don't repeat it, if you don't have to think about it, the circuits prune apart, right? So if learning is making new synaptic connections, and remembering is maintaining and sustaining them. So it's so much easier to forget this information than to remember it. So you learn it. Once I got a person's head nodding, then they turn to the person next to them and say, let me try this out. Let me try this out and let me see if I can repeat it. And so between the 2 of them, they exchange that information and they start to build a model of understanding. I understand, I got that, okay. Then we advance the information a little bit more and they're adding new stitches into the 3-dimensional tapestry of their gray matter. And they have to remind themselves what they've learned, reproduce that same level of mind. Mind is the brain in action. As you install those neurological circuits in your brain, then now you're prepared. It's the forerunner to the experience. You're prepared for the experience. So give the proper instruction, get your body involved, get involved in the process. The experience then causes circuits to become more enriched. That's what experience does. And then it makes a chemical, and that chemical is called a feeling or an emotion. And the stronger the emotion you feel from the experience, the more you remember it.
And what is that experience? What can
abundance, health, wholeness, a mystical experience, success, a new relationship, a new career, a new life, whatever that vision that person wants to arrive at in the future, and to actually go from the thought of that vision to the actual experience of it. And the distance between that thought and that experience is called time. So if we can teach people to shorten the distance between the thought of what they want and the experience of having it, then they start believing more that they're the creator of their life.
When you're under stress, okay, stress is created by not being able to predict something that's going to happen in your life, the perception that something's going to get worse or you can't control something, right? So when that occurs, we switch on that primitive nervous system called the fight or flight nervous system, and the brain goes into this very alarmed state called high beta. That means pay attention to the outer world, there's danger out there. But if it's not a predator and it's traffic or your coworker or your ex, right, this is where it gets to be a problem because it becomes very maladaptive, right? So when we're in that state and the brain is in that aroused state, we try to control and predict everything. So every person, every object, everything, every place, even your body has a neurological network in your brain, right? So as the arousal happens, we start shifting our attention to all these elements, and like a lightning storm in the clouds, the brain starts firing very, very incoherently. And when the brain's incoherent, we're incoherent.
So that's not a strong signal.
It's a static on the wire. That's disconnection. There is no signal.
Right.
So when we're in that state, we're always really looking for the worst case scenario of what's going to happen, because if you prepare for the worst, anything less happens, a better chance of survival, right? So in this kind of aroused state, as we shift our attention to each one of these elements that are known in our environment, the brain starts compartmentalizing and firing out of order, and that is what creates what's called autonomic dysregulation. That causes the brain and body to get really out of balance, right? So in that state, we're over-focused. You know, when you're stressed, you're over-focused on something. You can't stop thinking about it. Our research shows that when you do that, you actually make your brain worse, because you're analyzing your problems within some disturbing emotion, and that emotion is driving you further out of balance. You're actually knocking your brain and body out of balance by thought alone, and you're driving it into these more aroused states, right?
If all of your attention is on this three-dimensional world, you're unaware of energy. So have a person close their eyes and take their attention off of everything physical, everything material, everything known, and go from a narrow focus to a broadened focus. And as they sense the space, they're actually putting their attention on that invisible field of energy that exists beyond our senses, the quantum field, right? And that field is carrying an enormous amount of information. So when a person moves into theta, and I ask them to open their awareness, if they're in a certain range of theta, we can just about predict 100% of the time that that person is going to connect to information. Now, not information coming from their senses, like a hypnotist could put you in a trance in theta and give you suggestions and it could program you. But you're still in the same state, that hypnotic state, but your eyes are closed. There's music playing in the background. You're not eating, you're not tasting, you're not smelling, you're not feeling with your body, but you're still suggestible to information. There's only one other place you can find information, and that's frequency. And frequency carries information. So when a person starts to connect to energy, to frequency, and the thinking neocortex is dialed down, the moment they connect to that energy and frequency, the brain goes into these very, very high states of gamma brainwave patterns. They're connecting to a greater level of energy, a greater level of order, and the arousal that's felt when they have this connection, which is normally typically fear or anger or pain, the arousal is ecstasy. The arousal is bliss. They say, I don't have the words to describe the feeling that I just had, right? So they're dipping closer to source, and they're dipping closer to a greater energy and frequency, and it's being reflected in their biology. When we see people move into these elegant states of high gamma, it's primarily in their autonomic nervous system. It's very fast, and it's very coherent. Now, if stress is autonomic dysregulation, and they're functioning in a very, very high energetic state in their autonomic nervous system, coherent gamma brainwaves, then there's an enormous amount of autonomic regulation. And the autonomic nervous system controls and coordinates all other systems. Now watch out, because now the tuning fork is sending information to every cell and tissue and organ in the body. And when people move into these states, many times when they come back, they get a biological upgrade.
Imagine you feel so whole that you no longer have that lack where you feel like you need to make more money. So wholeness then, how could you want when you feel whole, right? It's impossible. And that's kind of a great state to be in, because when you feel whole, that's when you no longer have to get up and work so hard to do something to get what you want. When you feel whole, somehow things come to you, right? Instead of creating from lack or separation, creating from wholeness just shortens the distance between the thought of what you want and the experience of having it, right? And when you're shortening those distances, you're proving to yourself on some level that you're the creator. Now, to answer your first question, children and young people that are exposed to their environment, which is primarily their caregivers, whether it's their parents or their grandparents, we have neurons in our brain called mirror neurons. And mirror neurons are empathy neurons. When you feed a baby, you kind of pick the spoon up and you go like this. You do that and the baby opens their mouth. You don't think you're doing that, but you're doing that. And the baby's actually modeling your behavior, right?
Yeah.
So that's a fundamentally simple one. A lioness who's training her cubs how to hunt, when she's stalking the predator, the prey, the same circuits in the brain that the mother is using, the lioness is using to stalk the prey, the same circuits are being primed in the 3 cubs. She's priming the brain for that behavior, right? You're exposed to your parents and you see a lot of financial hardships. That is what's going in. The younger you are when that happens, the more it starts to program people subconsciously. Why? Because when you're a child, your brain waves are a lot slower. And the first 12 years, 7 to 12 years of your life, you're not in beta. You're in delta, theta, and alpha. And so there's no editor. Everything's going in without being encoded in any way. It's just going straight in, right? So unencoded. Nothing's going in unencoded. It's all on some level making its way subconsciously right back to the subconscious mind. So money is the root of all evil. We never have enough money. We have to work hard to be a success. That is the information that's going in subconsciously programming a person. So a person who's exposed to that may make up their mind and say, I will never, ever live my life in lack. I don't care if I have to study and get 10 degrees. I don't care what I have to do, but I'm never going to live like my parents or never going to live in lack like that. Yeah. Other people just go, this is normal. This is what my reality is, and I can't get any better than this. It's programmed in their subconscious. It turns out the subconscious mind runs the show. Sometimes we look for evidence in our life and it hasn't happened, and I think it's so important that we still show up. Yeah, because that's where you're changing the most. And when you get to that point where you could care less if it happens or not, because you feel so happy, so grateful for who you are, get ready, because your life is going to begin to change in magical ways. I'm so proud of our community, not because they do the work every day, not because they're trying to be good or please anybody. They do it because they don't want the magic to really end. The experiment is too good. They're going to continue to be a creator in their life. So then when they change the way they feel and the way they think, and they start seeing evidence in their life, they're going to remember what they did inside of them to produce that outcome, and they're going to believe they're creator of their life and less of the victim of their life, and that's empowerment. Yeah. And you can't take that away from anybody. You can't tell me now you're too sick to do that. You can't tell me you're too old to do that. You can't tell me you had a horrible past, you're too out of shape. You can't even tell me that you never meditated before, because we have people that come, they know nothing, they get dragged by somebody, and they have the most profound experience because they're not expecting anything. And we have data that suggests that when you don't expect anything, you're going to have a profound moment. So everybody can do it. There's nobody that's so special to be excluded from this process. And we have had people that have had brutal pasts with abuse, with trauma. We've seen Navy SEALs and prisoners with horrible, horrible memories literally transform in 7 days. And I could say right now that you make the time every single day to decide who you're going to present to the world, and you get up as that person. You're going to fall a lot of times, but sooner or later, once you start to change, it's pretty hard to go back.